What is up, everyone? It is March 1st. We are back, another Saturday show, breaking down the games of the day, the DraftKings slate, DFS slate, some bets that we've got. Gavin, it is March 1st. It's finally here. We've been grinding slates the entire season, but now is when a bunch more people jump in and join us. How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. God, I think, what is this, second to last Saturday? So got to enjoy it. Most definitely. There's, 130 some odd games. Might as well win some money today before we go to Vegas.
Yeah, right. And I think we've got more bets, at least I do, to start the day than we did last Saturday. Like the card a little bit more than last week. For this show, we've got our projections, our current projections shared here. For those of you who are not a member, if you want to join us from now through March, we do have sport-specific packages, and we do have a college basketball only. If you want to sign up, use code Steve15 for 15% off your first payment there. And I hope you join us. We have a great Discord, lots of really good players. If you looked at the leaderboards last night, you saw a bunch of them. Our optimal got, I think, 5th in the $5 single entry. So awesome to see all of the members doing so well. I know you echo that too, Gav. But yeah, we got 10 games to talk about here. We'll sprinkle in some bets as we go through. Post any questions you guys have in the chat as we're going through, or if there's anyone that we didn't touch on that you want us to. But yeah, Gav, let's get started. We got 5 games in the noon Eastern window, a bit more than we've had the last couple of weeks. I think it's been 3-ish. So we kind of start hot here with half the slate right away. We start with Terps at Penn State. Maryland minus 4.5 here. Big 154.5 total. No news expected. Puff Johnson's going to remain out here. Terps coming off just a heartbreaking home loss. Half-court buzzer beater by Sparty during the week. That sucked. It is actually Penn State's senior night. We're going to get senior nights incoming over the next week, so be careful with home starting lineups. I think that's the only one on this slate, Gav. But Penn State's just kind of playing out the string. So I would expect a senior late in the lineup here for Penn State. What do you got for us here?
Yeah, Maryland shot, woefully under expectation against Sparty. This sets up much better. The Penn State hard hedge. The way you beat that is, one, you have an elite point guard like a Jacoby Gillespie who can split double teams and create big issues getting into the paint, or you have short rollers, which Derek Queen and Julian Reese, 2 elite short rollers in their own right. So yeah, obviously sets up really well here for the Maryland guys. Personally, I mean, team total kind of over 80. Pretty good spot overall here against, a weak Penn State defense. I mean, this could be a spot like where Maryland, I think, just walks like to 82, 85 points, and with upside for more. So I think we're going to need to look at some spots here.
Yeah, I laid the 4.5 here with Maryland. I agree. It's just an awesome spot. Less on the bounce back, but the matchup's just so good for them here. They're going to pound Penn State inside. We've got Ace Baldwin on the Penn State side, priced to the moon. Not really for me here in this matchup. I think, kind of like the projections say, the best play on the Penn State side is DeLeon again. He's coming off 35 minutes, Gavin, their last game. That's 31 plus in 3 straight. So we're, at least decently conservative on his minutes here, and he's still popping a bit. But as we'll go through, there are a lot of value plays, a lot of good value, viable options on this slate. Thoughts on him, and then I want you to talk us through the Maryland studs too.
Yeah, the last slate DeLeon was on, we also had like a multitude of 4K options. But this slate is even better in that sense. We have some clear and apparent injury spots where guys are going to get, roll bump ups. But yeah, DeLeon sub 5K, if he's playing 30 minutes at home against a Maryland team that really cuts off the 3-point line. So, their drop coverage will limit Penn State's catch and shoot a lot, which means guys like a DeLeon, guys like an Ace will have to create more off the bounce. DeLeon, surely can do that. So yeah, he's squarely in play, but I wouldn't say like priority by any means, just given how many value options we have available on the slate.
Yeah, agreed there. We've got Julian Reese under 9K for the first time in a while. He's pretty attractive for me. Him and Derek Queen, I think, are awesome plays. You have a favorite between the two? And with Broom on the slate, you can't prioritize too many other spends. So we're going to have to be pretty judicious with that second spend today. What are your thoughts on the Maryland bigs before we move on here?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to gain a sense of, do they only start ball screening one of the bigs? I mean, they're going to use them both. Queen sets up a little bit better because he's a little bit better at providing an extra pass off the short roll, like to kick to corners and stuff like that. So, it's a pretty good actually assist spot for him in here. But yeah, Reese under 9K. I mean, one of him or Conan Niederhauser probably fouls in this game. So if he's the one that doesn't foul and it's YKN on the other side, then yeah, he could hammer 8.8K. Queen's just going to be a GPP mix in, but he's got real 45, 50 point upside. I mean, he just had a 60 a couple weeks ago against Rutgers. So yeah, both are good options. I probably slightly into Reese just with the price discount.
Yeah, same. Love Reese here. We saw YKN be chalk last Saturday, didn't foul. That was pretty frustrating because I faded him. But now he's 1,000 more expensive having to go up against the double big here. If I pop off camera, I'm pretty stuffed up, so I'm just blowing my nose. So apologize for that. Any last notes here before we move on?
Nope.
All right, let's go to the ACC. Miami dead team at Carolina. Carolina laying 18 here, Gavin. 161.5 total is the second highest on the slate. Big news here, Matt Cleveland. Is he available or not? We've seen him miss, I believe, the last two games for Miami, which has forced a bunch of minutes to their younger players, which we'll talk about. Miami 2-15 in conference play, Gav. Carolina's won 4 straight. They need to not drop this game because they've got at Virginia Tech Tuesday before they wrap up next Saturday hosting Duke, which is obviously a big one for them to make the tournament. What are your thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, if this was the Carolina game before Duke, I would have had some worry, but I mean, Miami is up to, quote unquote, up to 364th out of 364 in 3-point defense. Carolina is not the most adept 3-point shooting team. They want to get downhill a little more, but they're shooting 44.5% from 3 in their last 4 games. So, it sets up really well in that sense. Since the start of the calendar year in 2025, UNC, their last 4 games are 4 of their 5 best offensive performances. So, yeah, you bring that into a game against, the worst power conference defense by a country mile at home. Yeah, sets up extremely well. I mean, like Carolina, if they want, they could probably put up 90 plus here if they get any pacing from Miami. So, yeah, that's why they're laying a metric shit ton of points. So that's the situation here.
Yeah, we got some blowout risk here. That is baked into the minutes, Gav. Like we've got Davis at 33, not 37. Like he's probably going to be projected at next Saturday in the Duke game. So that's kind of baked in here. Makes the Carolina guys tournament only plays. I think the issue with them right now is the rotation outside of Davis. Yeah, we've seen the minutes come way down on guys like Ian Jackson, on Seth Trimble, even, who is reportedly transferring at the end of the year, anyways. So I think there's a bunch of risk with the UNC guys, even with the big team total, just because they seem to spread it out. Now, with the blowout risk, I think depending on how risky you play, I think guys like Jackson and even like a 3,700 Jalen Washington are interesting, especially for like the qualifier. Any thoughts on those guys? And then are you interested in any of the budget Miami guards?
Yeah, I mean, on the UNC side, part of that offensive upswing coincides with, Jalen Withers coming into the lineup more, yeah. But, at this point he's 6K, so a little bit tougher of a click. Yeah, it's pretty incredible how Ian Jackson went from just surefire, mid first round guy to just a rotational piece now at this point. It's pretty tough, but yeah, I still think, we're talking in the price range of DeLeon. I mean, they don't have as clear of a path to the 30 plus minutes, but the game environment, game script, especially if it blows out, plays more into their favor than the Penn State side. So yeah, if you want to mix in some UNC, I probably would like Powell a little bit more than Washington myself personally. Probably staying away from like a Van Allen, Lubin, and then like you said, kind of up top more the GPP guys. I didn't play any of the cheap Miami guys last time because they were also playing Duke. Much different defense than North Carolina. So yeah, if you want to play like in Ugachukwu or Jaleel Bethea, who's had some games, 30+ minute games in spots. He was kind of the only guy doing anything against Duke. You can mix those in, but not priority. But I'd say they're in the conversation for kind of like not priority, but primary kind of bucket of budget guys.
Yeah, I mean, anyone getting 30+ minutes at 4K is going to be playable, especially in a 161 total. So, yeah, I think you pulled the exact note that I was going to talk about. We didn't use these guys in their last game because they're playing a top 3 defense, maybe the best defense in the country in Duke, and now they're playing Carolina in a 160 total. So there's some blowout risk, but I mean, these are their young players anyways. So if Cleveland's out, those 2 4K budget Miami guards are definitely in play for a main lineup. Less interested in Staten McRae just because of the price difference. And, there's just more risk at 5-6. And the type of lineups that I usually want to build are more stars and scrubs, especially when we have such a strong 4K range. If Cleveland's in, Gav, I assume this is a full fade for you. And then any other notes here?
I still think those guys are in play, even if Cleveland plays. I don't think they're that bad. They're under 5K against a bad defense. Like, what's even like Brandon Johnson's price? I mean, 5.3. That's pretty cheap. He hasn't really had the minute steadiness, but I don't think these Miami guys are full fades if Cleveland plays. I mean, I don't even know if Cleveland's going to be 100%. So,
sure.
I still think they're all right.
All right, let's stay in the ACC here. Much lower total. Clemson at Virginia. Clemson's out to 7.5. We took Clemson last night, or at least I did, at either 6 or 6.5. No, 5.5 last night. Posted that in Discord for the members. If you are not a member, use code Steve15. Get in there with us. Posting openers on Friday night, and the majority of them I think have gone our way so far, which is nice. 133.5 total though. Here, Gav, the lowest on the slate. No news expected. Clemson, man. 11-1 last 12 in conference. The only loss was that triple overtime against Georgia Tech. They close with Virginia, BC, Virginia Tech. So pretty big favorite to go 18-2 in conference here, Gav, with a win over Duke. Feels pretty good that we were way higher than market on them coming into the year. And Virginia here, they've lost more home conference games this season than the last 4 or 5 combined. So just a tough year for them. You really hate to see it. But Clemson, talk to us about Clemson. 18-2 in conference is very, very viable.
Yeah, basically since the Duke game, like in the month of February, they're the 6th best team overall in the country. They're top 20 both sides of the ball. And they have, plenty of 3-point shooting against a Virginia pack line. You have a pack line versus an under screening Clemson team. There's going to be a lot of 3-pointers shot in this game. Clemson 4 straight double-digit wins since that Duke win. Top 10 3-point percentage team shooting, and they're even shooting 37% from 3 away from home. So I don't really have any issues other than the fact that this game was 59 possessions last year. It's not Tony Bennett, but it's kind of still his disciple against Brad Brunell. So, yeah, this thing could be ugly. It sure doesn't make you excited for any DFS plays, but generally agree on kind of the Clemson lean. I just don't know if UVA has the horses really to keep up offensively.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And just, we backed Clemson big last Saturday. We've been backing them all year. It was inside 6 of the time against a dead Virginia team.
The Florida State waxing that we bet them.
Yep. So I like Clemson here. DFS wise, the low total is baked in, at least for the cheaper guys here. I'm not playing any of the guys over 7K or even 6K in this game. But, we've been on Dylan Hunter. I think he's fine, like a cash play. He did get the price increase up to 4.9. we've been playing him around 4K for a while. So I think he's okay. Jacob Kofi's going to pop. So they are down that their backup center who had been playing extremely well of late, Anthony Robinson here, Gavin, which is why we've got more minutes projected for both Buchanan and Kofi. It just gives them a better floor, right? Like instead of three guys fighting for 50-ish minutes, it's only two. So I think Buchanan and Kofi are interesting tournament plays. I strongly prefer Buchanan. I just trust him more. We've seen Kofi project well all season and rarely get there. Fouls a lot. Tough interior matchup against Locken and Shefflin here. So I think Blake Buchanan's my favorite play in the game. Any thoughts on these cheap guys before we move on?
Yeah, I get if, Buchanan and Kofi are going to pop. I mean, man, I love this Elijah Saunders spot for GPP. Beginning of February was coming off the foot injury.
Yeah, getting his back. Yeah.
Last three games, kind of into the 20-minute role safely. Now with, one less guy in the rotation. He's had, I think, 7 or 8, games of 15 points plus. So, he can score pretty decently. Like we said, the matchup isn't great, but I think like Saunders is going to be the one who goes lower owned, and he's got the real scoring upside between all three of those guys, even if he lacks some of the rebounding peripheral upside that the bigger guys do. So, yeah, if you want any of those three, I don't even think Day-Day Ames is that terrible, to be honest. And you'll rarely hear me say that, but just kind of with the schematic matchup, one of their better 3-point shooters. So, I could see Day-Day getting there. Probably more of a cash play though.
I was going to say he is terrible, but not terrible for DFS.
Yeah.
That's a great point on Saunders. And it's worth mentioning that before Saunders got hurt, Gav, he was in the mid 6K range, the highest priced of that trio. So I do like the Saunders call here. Any last words on this game before we move on?
Negative.
All right, let's go to Big East. UConn at Providence. UConn laying 6.5 on the road here. 145.5 total is right in the middle of the slate. No news expected here. Kind of a weird sandwich spot for UConn following the bounce-back Georgetown win and hosting Marquette on Wednesday, which they'll need. Providence is dusted. Back-to-back road losses last week to Marquette and Georgetown. What do you got for us here, Gav? UConn at Providence.
Yeah, it's the part of the week where I say that Connecticut's defense is 30 spots worse defensively than Central Connecticut. And
wow.
all that is schedule adjusted. All that is per 100%, per 100 possessions adjusted. So it's not like, just because they're playing a bunch of blind schools that it works out that way. But UConn is 52nd in the last 2 weeks of the season. That's with McNeely back. So the 29th offense, we thought, be a lot better than that. 106 defense. They've actually turned the ball over a shit ton. I wonder if that has to do with DR kind of being, iffy health-wise, but 285th in 3-point percentage. So, it ain't been pretty. And at least as of last night, I haven't checked the lines this morning, but, you were getting a discount on Providence at home at the Dunk. This will probably be one of the better arena environments, on the slate. So I think it actually kind of sets up for a tough spot with UConn.
Yeah, I saw 6.5 right before we went live here. Let me double check.
Good God. That might be a men of principle play, You just at some point you just have to do it with you're just getting free points on the line without any big injury news. So even with UConn being kind of a buy-on team.
Yeah. I like it. And
I might have to.
I'm seeing 7.5s on MGM, Caesars, Hard Rock's got 7. DK Partners got 7.5 as well. So we'll stick with them. Laying 7.5 now. So it's gone up a point since I wrote the notes.
It's 2 on KenPom. It's 2.
All right, I'm taking the 7.5 on DK.
Oh my God.
I was looking at that last night. I'm on more dogs than I usually am, so I wanted to wait. But I have a hard time seeing it get past 7.5. I'm taking that right now. All right, so in on Providence. DFS-wise, Gav, we've seen the minutes condense on UConn around McNeely, Ball, Caravan, and a newly healthy Hassan Diarra, who fouled last game but still pushed to 30-plus minutes. We've got good minutes on all those guys. Like you said, with the poor UConn defense, their games have been kind of shooting out. Liam McNeely, I think, has been pretty unfortunate to not pop a big game recently. I like him here. We've got a good projection on a bunch of guys in this game. Do you have a favorite on the UConn side with the condensed rotation they're showing?
Yeah, I kind of initially go to Caravan and DR at the prices. A little bit tougher to play McNeely at 8K, even though he's got 40 fantasy point upside if he can just hit a shot. But yeah, he's also right next to Bensley Joseph, who won you a damn seat, who's been playing awesome. So yeah, I think I kind of tentatively lean towards the DR Caravan side of things, but I'm not sure if I love either one. I mean, we tried the Caravan out against Georgetown, and he has like his worst rebounding game, I don't know, in 3 weeks. So it's just tough that he's not going to have the same role, as he did with McNeely out. But even like at the start of the year, I mean, Caravan was really good, with him in. So it's not like just because McNeely's there, you can't get there.
Yeah, I think DR hurts him. Like full go DR, the peripherals are really good for him, and it just dings the same stuff that Caravan does.
That makes sense, because then you're playing through a more traditional point guard versus playing through like a guy like Caravan who can still initiate and facilitate, but he's not really a true point guard without Diarra.
Right. So I think my favorites are McNeely up top and taking the savings with Diarra. He's been fouling. I think he has upside for 32, 35 minutes here under 7K. Probably won't be too popular on this slate, but I think he's my favorite play in the game. We have a big projection on Oswin here. Been playing big minutes when he doesn't foul. They've kind of pared down that front court rotation. I think he's playable in tournaments at 5'4". Just know that you're playing a guy who can foul. How's his matchup here, Gav? I worry a bit about him having to guard guys like Terrace Reed, who's been awesome. I think his price has gotten a bit away from us. But, man, 22 minutes at 6,600 and projecting for 4.3x. Terrace Reed is not my style of play, but I understand that it is some people's style of play. Him and Samson Johnson are going to split the minutes at the 5. Johnson's been fouling a lot. He's down at 3.8, Gav. That's got to be the cheapest we've seen him all season. So I think depending on how many lineups you're playing and your style, I think there's a bunch of plays on UConn. And then with guys back on Providence, specifically Corey Floyd being back, all those guys are a bit overpriced outside of Oswin, I think.
Yeah, I generally agree. I mean, God, I wish there was a bet between Osman and Sampson that one of them has 2 fouls by the time we hit the first media timeout, because one of those guys are fouling. Yeah. The Providence rotation also can get pretty squishy game to game. It's a lot more hot hand. We've seen Mila play 30. We've seen him play 12. I don't know what like Rich Barron does in terms of his role. So it's not really a game that I'm going to be playing a ton of, honestly, in the main lineup. But yeah, I get what you're saying. If you want to mix in some of these UConn guys, I don't know if they have the healthiest team total or matchup in this spot, but some of these prices are just a little bit too cheap to ignore completely.
Agreed. Yeah, and again, my favorites here are DR, McNeely, and then depending on how many lineups you're playing, the UConn bigs you can mix in too. All right, let's stay in the Big East. Let's go to the last game of that noon Eastern window. Butler at Villanova. Nova lands 6.5 here at home, 145.5 total, same total as the Providence UConn game. No news expected here. Nova's been running the same guys out all season. They haven't had basically any injuries the whole year, it feels like. I saw Butler here last Saturday in Chicago at DePaul. It looked good. Tough spot facing Nova, who's fighting for a tourney spot following last week's blowout home win over Marquette. Any game notes you have here for Butler at Villanova?
Man, I remember the first time they played. This was the game that Butler led by, what was it? They led by 13 with 5 minutes left and lost by 8 at home.
Blew it. Yeah.
And then when I looked at the schedule and I was like, holy shit, that was on January 1st. That's when it hit me how fast this season had gone by, because it didn't feel like that long ago. Right. But in that game, Dixon went for 28 himself. Telfort went for 25, 10, and 6. Butler's top 40 3-point percentage offense, top 40 3-point percentage defense. So really those are the components that you need to beat kind of the Nova under switch. There's going to be a lot of 3-point variance baked into any Nova game. So, I could see Nova covering by double digits. I could see Butler winning outright in this. A little bit tougher to peg down from a side perspective, but there's still, some GPP option, I think, to consider in here as well.
We've been waiting for a good Eric Dixon spot, and then he goes and puts up 50 DK at Seton Hall in a 59-54 game.
We finally got 10. You finally got 10 boards. I mean, the guy just he hadn't been rebounding, most of the back half of the year, but finally does, and sure enough, 50. Yeah,
I mean, he's got 9, 5, 5, and 10 in the last 4 games. That is up from his season averages. So, that's what unlocks his ceiling. I'm not sure this is the spot for it, but I think he's at least interesting in tournaments up top at 9-5. Like, if he's going to rebound, he has the upside to smash slates. Besides him, not a ton of interest here. We have a good projection on a couple of the cheaper guys. Colby King, Gav, slowly seeing more and more minutes coming off of that injury. They're bringing him back pretty slowly, but it's tough. Like who is he going to take minutes from? They've shown that they want to jam as many as they can to Brooks, Telfort, and I think Bizjack is pretty locked in. McCaffrey's losing a bit of a role. That makes sense, but I just kind of struggle to see much more upside in Colby King's minutes just because they want to play these other guys. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, like Landon Moore's still in the equation. They're not just benching him; they're playing him. So yeah, there's a kind of a lot of mouths to feed in that Butler backcourt. Outside of kind of the main couple guys, they're on the road. Against a mega slow team. So it's just not a spot where I'm probably going to be itching to play much Butler by any means. So yeah, if you want to mix in a Colby King. I don't know, 20 DKs last 2 because he's got 6 and 8 rebounds, which are basically 2 of his higher season marks. So, yeah, him. I mean, Bowden Capke's been starting, and he's kind of threatening 20 minutes here. Gets a pretty soft matchup on the interior, and then kind of over the Nova side, Longino is like down to 5.2 is pretty cheap. He's another, I think, really good cash option that you can probably play in GPPs, but you're going to need some fortunate shot making just because the peripherals aren't there. But yeah, pretty decent spot for him as well.
Yeah, I think Longino is the best play in the game overall. Not a guy that we played much at all this season, though, Gav. So I always hate jumping in on a guy like super late, but he is going to play the whole game. So I think he's like you said, a cash play. A guy who projects for 36 median minutes with 21 DK. That's like a classic cash guy. Rates are not great. So yeah, it's Dixon and Longino here for me, probably passing on everyone else. I could see a Colby King or a Capke depending on how many lineups you're playing. Any other notes here for you?
Negative.
All right, let's go to the 1 p.m. window. It's an SEC window, 2 games, two big games for different reasons. Let's go to Auburn at Kentucky. Highest total on the slate. Going to be a great game. Auburn laying 4.5 here. When I wrote this down, it could be going out even further. I took the 4.5 when it popped yesterday, Gav. I'm not sure if you did as well. 165.5 total, like I said. Jackson Robinson, unfortunately, re-aggravated his injury last game and will be out again today. Kentucky shorthanded against the best offensive team in the sport. Really like Auburn here, Gav. It kind of sucks to have to lay points going into Rupp, but I just trust this Auburn team so much now. Bruce Pearl has been pretty vocal about the National Play of the Year stuff for Broome, which I think just helps both them and us so much more, because I think that like his minutes floor is just better, honestly, because they are pushing for this award. Any thoughts on that? And then thoughts on this game overall with no Robinson?
Yeah, someone, a buddy of mine messaged me today and said, do we take some of the flag because flag player of the year because the odds have flipped? Broome's now the favorite. that's like a personal kind of risk tolerance question. I think I'm just going to let Broom ride, dude. I don't think I need any of Flag. I think he's going to win it. But regardless, UK's off the big Oklahoma win where, it got super chippy in the end. Those teams didn't even shake hands because Owe and Jalen Moore and Brandon Garrison I thought Brandon Garrison was going to kill somebody on the floor. When that big bastard gets mad, whoo.
Yeah.
Kentucky's been really good at home this year. They beat Vandy by 20, they beat Tennessee by 10, and they beat Scar by $1 billion at home. So, yeah, it's not really a spot that I'd look to fade often, but it was still like the first play I made of the entire card. Getting Auburn at a discount to the Ken Pom projection without, their big time weak side shooter, as in terms of safety valve and Jackson Robinson. And we got to discuss Lamont Butler, right? I think because Lamont Butler is going to be, I think, a pain in the ass the rest of the year because he's a guy that like this price is too low for him, right? He has like 40 fantasy point upside. That's only helped, without Jackson Robinson on the court. He's also like, he could go out there any given game from now until the end of the season, run into one ball screen with that bad shoulder, and boom, it pops out, and he's gimpy the rest of the way. He can't shoot. That shoulder is going to be a problem for him the rest of the year. So he's a little bit wider range of outcomes than I think the projection will indicate. That's basically what you're working with. He could re-injure the thing any given play of any game, and he could score 40 fantasy points. So just keep that in mind. When he comes out as chalk, and you're making a decision of whether or not to play him.
Yeah, it's a great point. We're actually gonna smooth out his rates a bit, Gav, because I agree with you. I don't see his rates moving forward being the same with him playing through the injury. I think he's going to be out there more for defense and just kind of as a ball handler and a leader on this team. I think the usage is going to be lower than it was before. I think it's a great point. We'll probably end up with him around 4.4, 4.5x Gav instead of a 4.9 lock play. I think that's safer because he is too cheap, right? Like, so he came back last game, fouled out in 20 minutes. It's really hard to know how much he's going to play, Gavin, because like he was low 30s before the injury, comes back and fouls out pretty much immediately in his first game back. Like his minutes window could be 20 to 34 here, So I tried to keep it conservative and have him under 30 because in this big game, like if it's close, I could see him playing 34, 35 minutes, right? But you have to dock him for the injury that he's playing through. So I think that's a huge spot on the slate. What you're doing with Butler, I think it's super interesting. So we have that. We have Broom on the slate. It seems like 11K is the price ceiling for DK. They're not going to go above that, which is good for us because people keep fading Broom in elite spots. And now he's in a 166 total with a spread under 2 possessions. So we've got him for 33 minutes here. We've seen him play as high as 36 in close games where they get pushed. I'm not showing up without Broom on my main today, Gavin. Thoughts on him here? And then anything else on the Auburn side? We've seen the price tags come down on guys like Tahad Pettiford, who I think is super, super interesting in tournaments today.
Yeah, I mean, what should Broom's real price be? Probably more like 11.5. I mean, he just 60'd against Georgia, playing 37 minutes. So, the Georgia and Ole Miss games set up really well. Matchup wise for him, this isn't as good. Kentucky does. It's not quite no middle principles, but they're trying to keep you away from the basket. But Broom just tore up the Ole Miss no middle. Especially with the passing. He's got 4 assists in 3 of his last 4 games. Kind of interesting, but yeah, he's
good every game.
He's obviously fine. Probably going to be in my lineup. Then you talk about the cheap guards on Auburn. Like I think Denver Jones probably more of the cash consideration versus Pettiford is a little bit more GPP, just given the minutes difference that you're going to see between the two of them. But Pettiford having better rates. He's kind of been slowing down, late in the year. I almost wonder like if they put so much on his shoulders as kind of the go-to guy for the first 2/3 of the year that maybe he's just wearing down. So that's kind of the worries with those guys. Brandon Garrison just got 27 minutes against OU. I think this is actually a pretty good spot for him to get more minutes, just kind of with the double big Auburn lineup. They run out there with Broom and Cardwell. So there's a couple different spots here. Home Kobe Brea, 5.7. Might be the best 3-point shooter in the country, and he's the best shooter in the country at home by a mile. So yeah, any of those guys, I'm really fine with.
Yeah, wanted to mention that Amari Williams got a bit banged up last game, which is why Garrison played a bit more. So I even things back out because I think Amari's fine, but keep an eye on that for sure. Chad Baker-Mazara also playing through an injury as well, which is why his minutes are a bit depressed from his ceiling. I think if things are fine, he could play 32, 33 and smoke that 6'3" price tag, Gavin. I think he's a good tournament play as well. Awesome game stack game, obviously, with the total. I think, if you had to rate your top 3 or 4 plays for this game, I think it would be Broom, Butler, and then either Pettiford or Baker-Mazara for me, probably. What do you think?
Yeah, probably Broom, Butler, and then I think, personally, I'd probably rather just play the Denver Jones. I think Denver Jones is a little bit added minute upside here, given how good of an on-ball defender he's been. I tweeted he might be the best on-ball defender in the SEC, not named Zakai Ziegler. And UK is going to be heavily reliant on Butler, and if Butler's hurt, then it's going to be Owe, and they probably toss Denver Jones on either one. So yeah, he probably gets to 16 DK pretty easily with some upside for 25, 30 DK.
Yep. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to the other game in the 1 p.m. Eastern window. Arkansas at South Carolina. It's about a pick 'em here. Been going back and forth. 140.5 total. Adu Thiero is expected to miss again. Missed last game. Arkansas is down to 7 guys, Gavin. They were down to 7. We saw during the week. I believe it was a night slate, maybe Wednesday. Arkansas is fighting for the tourney all of a sudden. They're up to 36 at KenPom. They really need this one before 2 quad 1 games at Vandy and hosting Mississippi State to end the season. Scar's been pretty feisty in games, especially at home, but 1-14 in conference. I took the Arkansas plus 1.5 when I saw that pop last night. What are your thoughts on that? I actually don't mind Thiero being out. I kind of like the condensed rotation, and he's kind of forced to play Ivisic and Brazil, who I know that we both like, more minutes. I actually kind of like the condensed rotation for Arkansas.
Yeah, now, without Boogie, it was already condensed, and it could be even more condensed in this spot, without Thiero. Yeah, that makes sense. South Carolina got the monkey off their back last week, with a 15-point home win against Texas, and then promptly went to Columbia, Missouri, and lost by 30. So it's a little bit different scenario here in that, other than really like the Texas game, they've been catching, a touchdown or more at home. Just to hang around and keep it close, which they've been able to do. But, they got to win this outright, which they've proven they have done all of one time in conference play. So, yeah, I get it. Probably not a road spot that I love to bet into. But, yeah, I understand it for sure. Yeah, this is where, the Arkansas value with Thiero out, is obviously going to pop extremely well on the slate. Brazil played a shit ton because – I think that he's the guy that can slide between the 4 and the 5,
yep.
Depending on who's in, versus AD's only going to play the 5, Big Z's only going to play the 5. And if you're not going to play, the Richmond and Carter Knox's at the 4, then, it's going to be Brazil. And if he plays well to start out, then he's going to get extra run like he did last game. But what do we think is the rug pull potential for him? I would think that it'd be more if there wasn't 7 guys.
So that's the thing, right? So he played 40 minutes in the overtime game, played all 5 in overtime. So he played 35 in regulation. I've got him for 28 here because I wanted to be literally as conservative as possible with the Arkansas minutes, but you can't be any more conservative because they only have 7 guys. So and all of them play. And we know that Richmond isn't getting more than 20, 22 minutes. And we know that Adu is not getting more than like 20 minutes. So there's 5 guys for, basically 160 minutes. So you kind of have to give him 28 or 30 just because they're not going to push guys like Richmond and Adu up that high. Maybe Adu I could see like if Brazil or Zvonimir foul. But yeah, I mean, Brazil's a lock. I think you can play both just because the price tags, I think, under 4K, it's going to make everything work. Carter Knox always projects well. I worry about his ceiling though, Gavin. Like the price tag's getting up there. He's 5'7" now. He's not super cheap anymore. Nelly Davis fouled last game, which is why he played less minutes. But we've got him right back to 36 minutes here at 6'9". I think he's a tournament option. And then CMB, like we've seen them get blown out so often that his minutes are held down sometimes. It's supposed to be a close game here, though. Max effort home game for them. I could see playing him in tournaments too. He hasn't had like that 50+, I feel like, much in conference play, but he's been so goddamn consistent. Coming off 2 really, really good back-to-back games, has a couple double-doubles. So I do like Murray Boyles here, especially because the spread is close.
Yeah, I get that. It's not the easiest matchup against Big Z and Adu, but yeah, Murray Boyles is fine as a contrarian spend up. DJ Wagner is going to be your cash play, of Arkansas, along with, Brazil, and the GPP guys are going to be Richmond and Davis. I don't think it's completely out of the question that, we know how Cal gets. He can rug pull Brazil, and like if Richmond plays 28 or 30, it wouldn't totally surprise me, but it does take some projection to get there. So that's how you go if you go away from Brazil, within the game. But he's still, I'd say priority budget play in this spot.
Yeah. Any interest in the guys up top, CMB, Visic, anything like that?
Not really. I think if you want to mix them in for GPP, that's fine. I don't think you're going to need a ton of exposure to them to be over the field if that's the spot you want to hammer. Personally, don't love it, but at least I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping. So I played Visic on that night slate, hoping that they're down to 7 guys. Maybe he'll pop like a 35-minute game. No, they're going to keep him in that high 20s. It looks like. So yeah, I think this is a good spot to just kind of take the value, bet on Arkansas, and move on here. All right, let's go to the next game. We got 3 games left, about 15, 20 minutes left. So good timing here. Let's go to the Big 12. I got a couple games, Big 12 in this 2 p.m. Eastern window, starting with Oklahoma at Ole Miss.
SEC ding dong.
Oh wait, I was reading the Texas Tech Kansas one. Oklahoma at Ole Miss though. We'll stick with that. Ole Miss minus 7.5, 152.5 total. One of the 4 totals over 150 on this slate. No news expected here. Tough conference run out this season for Oklahoma, 4-11 with 3 really tough games left. I guess they're all tough in this SEC conference though. Ole Miss dropped 3 in a row. Still has Tennessee and Florida on the sched. So tough end of the season for Ole Miss here. I took Oklahoma last night at the big number, Gavin. I believe. Let me check right here. I took plus 8.5 with Oklahoma. It just seemed like too many points for Ole Miss. I'm not a huge believer in Ole Miss long term. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's a really tough sandwich spot for Mississippi or for Ole Miss. That I kind of wanted to come into the game betting them. It's 7 on Ken Palm, opened 8.5. It's down to 7.5. I just probably need a couple more points on the Ole Miss side. I don't really want to be betting on this OU team a whole lot, honestly. They're going to get mauled in the shot volume department, not because Ole Miss is some beast on the glass, but just with their 2-way turnover proficiency. So, after Auburn, you get smacked by 30, 2 road games, you lose to Vandy and Auburn. Now you come back home against OU. If that probably limits some of the sandwich concern. is just being off 3 straight losses. And, OU's not really a great offense to be picking apart the Chris Beard no middle. They do have enough 3-point shooting to do it, but it is a lot of isolation. It is a lot of ball screens with Jeremiah Fears kind of creating. So, yeah, slight boost to the OU 3-point shooters here, which would mainly be Fears, Miles, Elvis, Gudine, all in pretty good spots. So, there's a couple GPP ways I think you can look in this game.
Yeah, Fears priced to the moon after back-to-back awesome games for him. He's priced out for me, especially on the road here. It's about the cheap guys. Again, more guys in the 4K range that are playable. We saw Duke Miles come in pretty chalky last Saturday at 5-something. I was surprised at that. He fouled early. His price down to 4.5. We've seen Goodine price, around 5K. He's at 4.3 now. Both guys are going to play about 30 minutes. We have great projections on both of those, as you see here. And then Matt Morrell, Gavin, I think we need to talk about him. 5.2K, lowest price I think we've seen on him in a couple of years. He's been in and out. Well, not really in and out with injuries, but in and out of the injury report, but just kind of playing through stuff every game. I don't think he misses here. 5.2K is cheap for him at home in a good total. I think he'll be pretty popular here, as he should be. So, those are our 3 best projections here. I kind of agree with all 3. Do you have a preference between the OU cheap guys, and then thoughts on Merle here?
Do I have a preference with the OU cheap guys? Not really. They all make sense kind of within a vacuum. I wish Kobe Elvis had a little bit better minute floor, but Sam Godwin off the just bazooka game 2 games ago, Mississippi State, we had a double. Even Forsyth is making his way into the lineup, so they're not as priority for me. I think this is potentially a value situation that you don't necessarily need to play. I think there's better ways around this than the Arkansas condensed rotation. So, those guys are all fine. They're not priorities for me, but they're still in the primary pool. And then, Morrell 5.2. I think this is the cheapest we've ever seen in his career. So he probably doesn't have the minute certainty as a Longino in that range, for instance, but I think has way bigger upside. Like could score 20 real in this spot.
Yeah, God, he's had such a weird season.
Just hard. There's so many guys in that backcourt,
Yeah, and battling through, I bet we hear more about his injury after the year that he was playing through something the whole season. But at 5.2, it's hard to ignore, especially at home here with a good total. So I think he is the best play in the game. I agree with you there. Anything up top for you, or should we move on?
I don't think I'm playing much up top. Padula, the price isn't terrible, but you didn't love kind of the backtracking minutes against Auburn, although it was a blowout. If you're just going to lock him in for 3 to 4 boards, 3 to 4 assists, and he gets to 20 real, he's got a chance to clear sub 8K. He's a little bit cheaper than he was kind of beginning of the month. So I don't mind Padula at all.
Yeah, not a guy that we played much this year because he's been in the mid 8s for most of the season. So him under 8K, I think that's a good call. I think that's at least interesting, especially if you're playing multiple lineups. I think Padula is interesting. All right, we got 2 games left. Let's now go to the Big 12. Texas Tech at Kansas. I jumped the gun. Kansas laying 4.5 here, 144.5 tote. So right in the middle of the slate, much like those Big East games we talked about earlier in the mid 140s. Massive news here. We haven't had much news on this slate besides waiting on the Matt Cleveland news earlier. But Texas Tech has been down Darian Williams and Chance McMillan. Both are game time calls here. I'm leaning that both are in, but I'm not super confident. We just updated projections right before we went live to have both guys in, Gavin. Our TTU squad, man, we're high on them early. We're high on them on the preseason preview show. They're up to 7th at KenPom despite that home loss to Houston on Monday without those guys. Really easy end of conference schedule after this with Colorado and a depleted Arizona State team on deck to finish things out before the Big 12 tourney. Kansas has not an easy road. Texas Tech at Houston, and then Arizona. What do you have for us here?
Yeah, this is another obviously super public spot, with Kansas being completely dog in their last 2 weeks. I think I have them 60th overall on Torvik in the last couple of weeks. Like, it's been really ugly for them. So, the two guys, Darian Williams and Chance McMillan, it sounds like they're trending towards playing, but the extent to how much they play, I think, is a little bit more up in the air. It sounds like in a limited capacity. But yeah, I mean, Kansas hasn't looked great against drop coverage. Texas Tech's going to run a ton with JT Toppin. Tech actually had their best rebounding performance against Houston in like a month, over a month and a half. So is that, an inspired home effort, with your guys, with your your starters down, maybe a little bit, now into Fog Allen. I think it was 2 on Ken Palm. Now it's getting up to like 4.5 on the spread. So a little bit too rich for my blood, especially those guys are going to come back and play.
Yeah, agreed. I was pretty conservative. As you can see here, Gav, I've got both those guys for 26 minutes. They average mid-30s when they're fully healthy. So Texas Tech a bit tough to project. What we do know is that JT Toppin's going to play about 3/4 of the game. We have him for 31 minutes here. He's been 30 to low 30s in their closer games. He's at 10-5, massive upside, tough matchup. I kind of worry about the whistle here, Gav. At Fog for a guy like JT Toppin, who has had some foul issues this season. So know that going in with Toppin. And then if these guys are going to be limited, Federico, your boy, at 3.5. Even when these guys were playing, he was seeing 18, 20, 24 minutes, low 20s mostly. I want your thoughts on him at 3.5 here. Obvious foul risk, of course, with him as well, especially at Kansas. But, man, that's got to be the cheapest we've seen him as well.
Yeah, and if Kansas is going to run a bunch of, Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams, and Floyd Badunga, then there's kind of outside shot that Tech can run more double big lineups. And yeah, if Williams isn't healthy, I was gonna bring up Federico if you weren't. He was like the unowned guy on that team. Where everybody else was owned. Toppin was owned, Hawkins was owned, Anderson, Overton, and Federico was the one that went under the radar. I think that was the slate that Hofbrau won with Federico and Overton. So yeah. I think he's a really interesting GPP option. He fouled 4 times. He had 1 stock in that last game, and he still got to 20 DK. So there might even be further upside beyond that. I really like Federico in this spot. Like, especially if you want the salary relief, I think he has way more upside than some of the OU guys. Like, it's not out of the question he plays, another 26 to 28 minutes in this spot. And like, if Toppin fouls, if Darian Williams comes back and fouls, like, he's going to be the first guy off the bench with, good runway to play a lot of minutes in the first half. So
he has a lot of paths to get minutes here, right? He has Toppin fouls, he has Williams fouls, he has Williams not being 100%. I think there's a lot of paths to him playing mid-20s here. And like, I was pretty conservative, Gav. We got him at 22 minutes, and he's still at 4.6x. I think an interesting way to do it too, if you're not super confident, like say you don't want to play him if both guys are back in. I think you could go into this game with Rylan Griffin, Gavin, in your lineup, and then pivot down if you wanted to. Rylan Griffin seems pretty locked into that mid to high 20s role at 3.9. I think that he's a fine play too, especially at home.
Yeah, he's probably going to go overlooked. With the 2 cheaper Texas Tech guys, like, how many minutes does Overton play? He probably goes back into the 20, 22 minute range. I
think less than that. Like, he was playing 6 to 8 with everyone healthy.
Yeah, it could be. So, I don't think that's a bad way to go about it at all. Yeah, Griffin. Bill Self just needs the shooting in the lineup. So whether or not he's going to shoot it well, they at least need him there because AJ Storr ain't going to do it. And then now there's Diggy Coit. So yeah, I'm fine playing that way. You have an extra 400 too if you want to pivot around, by doing that swap. So yeah, that's definitely a way to go about it.
Any other KU guys for you? Dickinson at 10.3, Zeke Mayo priced down a bit at 7.4 here.
I think Mayo's kind of interesting. He's going to be a big guy against the drop coverage. Like, DeJuan Harris, as we know, is just kind of a bum and is there offensively. So can I get to 7-4 Zeke Mayo? If you're playing GPPs and mixing stuff in, yeah, maybe, but I probably out on Dickinson at 10-3, even though he just axe murdered, the last slate at a short slate at no ownership. So certainly understand if people want to play him. And then probably other than that, I think not much Kansas for me.
Agreed. All right, let's go to the last game on the slate. We got a couple minutes left. This one should be fairly quick. Seton Hall at St. John's, 134.5 total, second lowest on the slate. St. John's laying 20.5 here to Seton Hall. Aaron Scott questionable after playing through what sounds like multiple injuries that he sustained in that last game. Gav, I think I'm going to update this and project him out. I don't see the need for St. John's to push him here. Johnny's now 16-2 in conference, undefeated at home, pushing for like a 2-3 seed. Love this team. Let's talk as if Aaron Scott is out. The projections currently have him in. That's going to push a bunch of minutes to guys like Davon Smith and to Simeon Wilcher. So Wilcher will probably pop there at 4K. Another pivot piece late for cheap.
Yeah, the other thing I like about Wilcher too is Seton Hall. This is the type of team that will give St. John's problems. Eventually, not this Seton Hall team specifically because they're literally a MEAC team, but you have no middle principles. You force St. John's to shoot more from the outside. It's not only Aaron Scott, it's Kadari too. Both these guys sound like they're dealing with some injuries, so this could be a spot where Pitino doesn't really, they keep Seton Hall at arm's distance the entire way. It's they don't blow them out, but they win the game pretty comfortably. Don't need to push their main guys, and then Wilcher against the no middle. Simeon Wilcher 3-point props actually too are really interesting, especially if Scott misses.
Agree there. Yeah, I'm gonna make some adjustments here. I'm gonna come down on the minutes for the St. John starters and give more to the I beat IOs and the praise and guys like that because of the huge blowout potential. It just kind of seems like a spot where Pitino could let them chill, especially late in the game. We pull up what they have on deck here. They're at Marquette next Saturday, so this is actually their last home game. So we could see some senior night shenanigans here as well. Any last thoughts on this game?
No, I mean, I haven't played guys against St. John's, and Seton Hall's on the road in this spot, so probably not for me.
Yeah, I'm hoping people click Adaiwusu after his random big game. That would be awesome to have a popular 5,800 Adaiwusu with a 57 team total at St. John's. I hope that happens. All right, that was the entire slate. If you enjoyed the show and you want our content, we got playbooks, projections, core plays, matchup tags, and everything every day at Rump Your Sports. You can do a college hoops only package. Just use code Steve15, 15% off your first payment. Gav, why don't you give some overall slate thoughts and then any bets outside this window of games that you've made so far?
Yeah, I think it's setting up for stars and scrubs. Saturday was way less comfortable value wise. There's a lot more guys in the discussion this week. I mean, we almost have to go out of our way to make the case as to how some of these guys don't get there on value. So yeah, the kind of I'm gonna be trying to shoot for one or two of the lower owned guys. So if that's a Federico or something like that, I think that's probably how I'm gonna play it rather than just shoving all the chalk value.
Yeah.
Outside the slate, couple spots like Oregon State in the late window, catching 12.5 at St. Mary's. St. Mary's has the conference locked up at this point. They're basically a shoe-in to be in the semifinals for the WCC championship tourney. So I like that spot. It's I think it was 10 on Ken Palm, so getting a couple extra points of value there. Took the under in BC Cal, Cal slowing down a bunch in conference. BC, I think cross country. I think this game's at Cal. That's one I like. And then looking through here, I don't know. Those are a couple.
Yeah, I've got I took the under in Bama, Tennessee. Always scary to take a Bama under, but at Tennessee.
Those teams took 77 3-pointers last year in their game at Coleman Coliseum. So it could be an ass clincher.
Tennessee taking a bunch of threes is good for the under. It was 160, so too many points per game at Tennessee for me. I took Xavier -2 at Centas. I like that. Georgia getting too many points at Texas. I took the +6.5 there. And I took the big number, Arizona +6.5 at Iowa State. I don't love that, but a banged up Iowa State team, you're getting multiple points of value on Arizona, a team that we do like, especially with the new front court mix that they're running out there. All right, it's 10:03 Central here. We got to get to our lineups. We'll see everyone in Discord for those of you who are members. For those who are not, go ahead and join. Code Steve15. And we had a good turnout here. We got 790 people watching right now on YouTube and on Twitter. So thanks, everyone, for hanging out. I guess my overall slate thoughts, too, are that it's going to be stars and scrubs. I think I agree with Gavin. You can get different down low because there are so many good value plays on this slate. But, yeah, if you remember, we'll be posting lineups and news. We'll definitely have afternoon projections. I'm not certain on night. I know Captain has some plans later. So stay tuned in Discord, and we'll see you guys next Saturday.